While scrolling through the 40k subreddits and the various YouTube comment sections, I've been coming across this really interesting theory. The Emperor planned to imprison, force or consign Magnus to the Golden Throne forever. Then when the Great Crusade is done, Magnus will be picked up, stuck in the Golden Throne like an AA battery, and then be forced to die for 10,000 years, the exact same way the current God Emperor of mankind served for eternity. And while the lore does confirm that Magnus would one day sit upon it, there are some crazy sources that tell us the exact opposite. Magnus would have been placed on the throne as a gift. It would not have been a punishment. It would have been an ascension to something greater. Malcador describes sitting on the throne as an experience that immensely amplifies a person's power, allowing them to comprehend various universal mysteries and reach into the unfathomable knowledge that extends even beyond the golden age of humankind. Yes, the experience would physically be excruciating, no matter for what being sits upon it, but for a demigod like Magnus, it would be a tiny price to pay for the betterment he would bring to humanity. In fact, I believe Magnus will be thrilled at the opportunity to sit on the throne, even for just a minute. He wouldn't be able to resist it. The Golden Throne represents the ultimate theme park for Magnus, and they would have to pry him away from it, as he would become utterly engrossed in contemplating thoughts worthy of the Emperor's level, until he starved. Offering the throne to Magnus would likely be the best reward the Emperor could ever conceive of. But why was Magnus scared of sitting upon the Golden Throne? Why didn't the Emperor of mankind tell him? Does the Emperor even know what the Golden Throne is capable of? And do we even know what the Golden Throne actually is? Is it really just a throne of pain? Or is there something more to it? Something so evil, even the Drukhari wonder how humanity hasn't fallen apart yet. Well, in this video we're going to cover that and a whole lot more. We will take a deep dive into what the Golden Throne actually is from both the human and Xenos perspective. We are going to take a look at why Magnus feared it so incredibly much, and why in the end Malcador realized that the Emperor had made a severe mistake, that somehow the two most powerful beings in the entire Imperium miscalculated what this mysterious machine is actually capable of, and that indeed Magnus had to sit upon it, and with his might, humanity would finally ascend the stars. Alright, enough yapping, let's get into the lore. What is the Golden Throne? The Golden Throne seems to be some kind of god engine, some sort of focus of psychic energies that can be transferred into a living being, both into and out of the warp. Essentially, in a way, it's capable of channeling souls. There's an insinuation that the Golden Throne is part of the equation that will make another Chaos God / Dark King via this energy channeling, but it's not entirely clear. At its core, the Golden Throne is a massive psychic amplification device, the size of a city block that stretches miles underground, and is located within the Imperial Palace on Terra. Although it is not literally a throne per se, it does have a chair-like interface that a powerful psyker can sit upon in order to communicate with its ancient machinery. Or at least, that's what we think it does. According to the Fabricator General of Mars and a custodian named Nefertaran, the Golden Throne looks different to every single person who witnesses it, much like the Emperor himself, but that's a whole other deep dive for another time. Although the vast majority of humanity in the 41st millennium believes that it was the Emperor himself who created it, we as the audience know that this isn't the case. More likely, it was constructed way before the dawn of humanity, was found by the Emperor during his time on Old Earth as Alexander the Great, and then relocated the machine to the Imperial Palace in the later years of M28 to suit his new purpose. And what is that purpose, you may ask? To punch a hole into the Eldari webway, give humanity access to it, and completely eliminate the species' need for warp travel. Because you know, Slaanesh was about to be born. The Golden Throne is still a mystery device, and it's akin to the idea of primitives, humans, using a device we don't understand. There's this great novel called Roadside Picnic, in which this person finds an alien artifact that has an extraterrestrial landing, or so is assumed in the novel. The main character sort of perceives the idea of a bunch of ants showing up at the remains of a picnic, in which the ants marvel at what they see, the strange food they experience, and the things they take back to their nest to be used, but used in ways ants would and humans wouldn't. The character sees humanity as doing this with alien tech. We pick up a dongle and we think, ah, it's a temporal displacement unit, but an alien would say, dude, that's an oven. It just also happens to displace time in the cooking process. What is wrong with you? That's what the Golden Throne is. It is something that humanity, the Emperor included, doesn't fully understand, nor have they built it. It's a device that was discovered, and is being used in a way that may never have been its intended purpose. It's a device that channels energies, and it can accidentally keep the webway closed, the Emperor alive, and somehow helps him focus the Astronomicon even better. Yes, which is a whole separate device. It is not connected to the Golden Throne, but we will get into that later. It's essentially a million monkeys grasping a weapon they cannot understand. But there is a bit more to this. In the End and the Death Part 3, in Malcador's The Hero's Last Moments, he is hit with an epiphany on what the throne actually is, realizing the Emperor doesn't just need the throne needs a host as well. I have lasted this long because I had to, not to see him home, but to hold the throne until he returned. As they bring him up the steps towards me, I feel urgent expectation. The throne is his only chance. It will save him, it will restore him and sustain him. It is what they have understood from the signs and symbols that both he and I have tried to show them. For signs and symbols are the only language we have left. This will save him. Like plans, though, symbols are imprecise, they are fluid, and they seldom mean what we presume they mean. Rogel and Constantine believe they are saving him. They think that the throne is his only chance. In fact, the reverse is also true. He is the throne's only chance. I know it, and my friend knows it. This is what we were trying to tell them. Yes, the throne may stabilize him and suspend him, as it did me, but that's beside the point. He is the only one who can stabilize it, for I no longer perform that task, and thus it will tether him here, to this seat, to this room, to this reality, and on the brink of death and the verge of life, both wounded and whole, unborn yet reborn, ended yet unending, now and forever. It was never his intended plan, but it was a contingency. My King of Ages knew it might come to this. If the permutations of the future aligned in this particular way, that's what he told me. Anyway. He had me believe he would be ready if there was no other choice, and I see none from where we are sitting. It will be agony, I can vouch for that. I have lasted but a brief moment of that eternity, and that is more than enough. May your death live forever, my friend. There's nothing immortal about this. While some may argue that this is just an in-universe opinion, while on the throne, Malcador had access to a massive information database coming straight from the warp. He's not all-knowing, but was the closest thing to it in the entire material universe at the time. But a couple of years ago, in the Vaults of Terra series, this is outright disproven, as a Drukhari homunculi who's seeking to clone the Emperor for the Komorra Golden Throne, yep, that's a thing, says the following to an Inquisitor, while they are fighting underneath the Golden Throne itself. Shall I cushion the blow for you, or simply tell you here and now that the Emperor did not create the throne, but adapted it from 1,000 different stolen artifacts of older races? Or that its function is misunderstood by your people, that if you ever discovered the truth, it would, at the very least, rip your deluded empire in half? That, worst of all, the Emperor you place so much store by is entirely irrelevant to the machine's ongoing function. The Golden Throne is not just Eldar, human, or hell even Old One's tech, but dozens, maybe even hundreds, of other Xenos' tech pieces cobbled together, somehow turned into a database that can be reproduced, and even be used by other species. So, what do we know for certain? In the 41st and 42nd millennium, the Golden Throne serves three main purposes. Number 1, it is an absolutely insanely potent psychic amplification device that allows the Emperor to single-handedly hold back the tides of the warp. Originally, he had a whole bunch of psychic wards around the solar system that prevented demonic incursions, but those ended up getting shattered by his son Magnus. So now, the Emperor, through the use of the Golden Throne, has been holding back the demonic tides for over 10,000 years. The second purpose of the throne is that it links to the astronomical, in the way that a portion of the Emperor's power keeps it lit. You can think of this thing as a giant golden beacon, an artificial North Star that produces psychic light that navigators aboard void vessels can see from any place in the galaxy, or from the tides of the warp, thus allowing them to ground themselves and safely navigate in much the same way that sailors navigated the seas of old Earth. The third purpose is that it is a life support system for the Emperor. This was something that was done last minute during the Siege of Terra, after he had been mortally wounded by his son Horus. In all honesty, the throne is the only thing keeping the Emperor alive, and if it fails, he would surely die. From that quote from Malcador, it was also pretty clear, even a perpetual will not come back. You don't actually die when you sit on it, you just disappear. Now, that's the core lore of the Golden Throne. That's what humanity believes to be true. If it suddenly stopped working, the Emperor would no longer be able to hold the tides of chaos back, and Holy Terra would be consumed by hordes of demons in a matter of days. This would result in massive upheaval throughout the Imperium, as political instability spreads like wildfire. To make matters worse, this would also mean the Astronomicon would go out and make long-distance void travel impossible. All of the 1 million worlds of the Imperium would be cut off from one another, just like they were during the Age of Strife. And indeed, this time it would be infinitely worse, because, you know, there's Tyranids and a shitload of orcs now. But what did Magnus know of it? In 1000 Sons, we see Magnus being shown a vision of the future by Tzeentch. In that future, he's chained to the Golden Throne, thrashing and suffering for eternity. Tzeentch showed this to Magnus to imply that this was his fate if he went back to the Emperor, and it's part of the reason why Magnus chooses to die at Prospero instead of surrendering to Rus, and one of the big reasons he fights against the Emperor when he's whole again. However, it seems implied that this isn't a vision of the Emperor winning. He isn't going to torture Magnus at all, but rather it is a vision of Horus winning the heresy and torturing him for all eternity. After all, it seems likely that Tzeentch can't just do whatever he likes in visions of the future, and more changing how they are framed and presented. The Golden Throne was a gift, and here is why. Magnus is basically a failsafe, but already in 1000 Sons, when his mind links with the Emperor, he sees that staying on the throne won't be that bad, because he will be able to travel with his spirit into the warp and access infinite knowledge. Don't forget, the quote from the End in the Death got Malcador doing exactly that, with the in-person Vulcan even wondering if in part he accepted the death on his throne for the chance to finally understand the truth. But here's the quote of what the Emperor shows Magnus in 1000 Sons, something completely opposite of what Tzeentch shows him. Unspoken understanding flowed between Magnus and the Emperor. Everything Magnus had done was laid bare, and everything the Emperor planned flowed into him. He saw himself atop the Golden Throne, using his fearsome powers to guide humanity to its destiny as rulers of the galaxy. He was to be his father's chosen instrument of ultimate victory. It broke him to know that his unthinking hubris had shattered that dream. Magnus somehow forgot and had to realize it would be like that again. Back to the bird rock he flew. And there, deep in the heart of the world, Magnus found himself in the Great Cavern of Machines, sat upon the same golden throne upon which he had recently seen his father. Fear touched Magnus as he remembered seeing a vision of this, his physical body ravaged and husked out by unimaginable cost of maintaining the portal. "I have seen this," he said. "It will kill me. Look closer, my son." The vast doors before the throne were open, and a beatific light issued from what lay beyond. This was not a vision of his doom as he had been shown, for here his face was serene and vacant, merely a vessel of flesh and blood. His subtle body was entirely absent. His father felt his confusion. "Your spirit is by my side, as it is now. We fly the great ocean as explorers of the furthest reaches of consciousness, masters of time and space, as we always dreamed, Magnus." But of course, it is the Emperor of Mankind, meaning he was very adamant about Magnus being a failsafe. Here's a quote from Bury Dagger. "Down there was a giant metaphysic cage they had built to imprison Magnus the Red, crafted to the Emperor's own designs. But few believed they would ever have the occasion to use it. Like with the White Mountain itself, the cage was something forged in the spite of the inevitable, a reserve, a backup plan in case other, better schemes failed." The Golden Throne's function isn't really to open or close webway gates or physically protect the human parts of the webway or anything like that. Its primary function is to act as a psychic amplifier. Whoever sits on it has their mind and psychic powers expanded massively. Between the points where Magnus does nothing wrong and the end of the Siege of Terra, the throne remains in continuous operation because it's needed to hold the gate and damage parts of the webway against the demons that are trying to get through, as well as the entire pressure of the strength of the Chaos Gods pushing on it too. After that, it is modified to act as a life support mechanism in addition to its normal functions, so that the Emperor can stay alive and allow him to use his powers to keep the gate sealed and the Astronomicon lit. But a side effect of this is that he is kept alive in constant agony. If Magnus had done nothing at all, then even if he had sat on the chair, all it would have done is amplify his powers. It is not naturally a torture machine. Even if Magnus sat on the chair after he did nothing wrong, it would still have been enough to win the siege much earlier and way more convincingly. At which the point the Chaos Gods recede and they can rebuild the wards and the damaged bits of the Imperial Webway project. So taking the pressure off whoever was on the throne anyway. Plus it would expand Magnus' mind and powers so he could hunt for the lost knowledge wherever and whenever he wanted. No point in space and time where the warp exists will be beyond his reach. He could even travel to the deep warp if he wanted to. It's actually nuts. Yet, what is the consequence of it not being given to Magnus? And now even the Emperor is starting to not be enough to keep the throne running. He had himself installed on the Golden Throne to keep the Webway Gate from rupturing, sending Segmentum Solar into the warp, finishing the creation of the Maelstrom branch of the Great Rift, torn from the Storm of Magnus, Tenebrous Rex and Fool's Doors clean through the Gates of Fire. And with no further action, as said in the recent books, the throne will fail. The Emperor will die, and we don't even know what that will entail. Magnus is a shredded soul searching for his last shard, sat in a cycle of constant revenge and constant defeat. It's pretty sad, because if he were to sit upon the Golden Throne, every single one of these issues could have been solved before they even happened. But what do you think of all this? What needs do you believe the Golden Throne was designed to fulfill? If Magnus had sat upon it instead of the Emperor, how do you think the Horus Heresy and the following 10,000 years would have gone? Leave your ideas, comments, suggestions, lore tidbits, questions and other things down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.